A while back, I was replaying Pokémon Alpha Sapphire, as I often do when I want to be frustrated. The last time I picked the game up, I completed the main story, so this time I was left with the Delta episode as far as structured content goes. For those unfamiliar, this is a post-game episode added to these remakes that culminates in back-to-back fights with the ever-popular legendary Rayquaza and the elusive mythical Deoxys. If you're not a Pokemon head, the phrase mythical may seem like me trying to avoid saying the word legendary twice, but it's actually a really specific word in this context. In Pokemon, the word mythical refers to a group of about 24 or so super rare Pokemon that are only obtainable in very limited context. The most common of these being real-life timed distributions. Beg your parents to take you to GameStop, bring your copy of the game, and let the dead-eyed employee magically implant your cartridge with about a month or so of playground bragging rights. As a kid who was never able to convince his parents to take him during the life cycle of the original Ruby and Sapphire, I have pretty fond memories of trying to get Deoxys through just about every rumor on the internet. And at the time, I think I would have called him one of my favorite Pokemon? Yet, upon finishing the Delta episode and catching the critter for myself, I felt kind of nothing. He was the noodly reddish little guy I'd always wanted, and yet, nothing. Now, I'm not an idiot. I'm aware that my child's imagination had attributed more importance to Deoxys than could have ever been resolved by acquiring him. But as an adult, I actually have experienced a few other Pokemon events, and call me simple if you want, I actually come away from them quite happy generally. When the fear of missing out resolves in tangible proof that I was somewhere or did something, there's some kind of unique emotion that I quite like. Before we dive deeper into this, I'd love it if you guys could like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that stuff. I really love making videos and definitely want to be able to justify giving it more of my time. Thanks. Before we get back to Pokemon, I should do my due diligence and caution against the abuse of FOMO. As a young adult, I fell down the gacha hole exactly once. Fire Emblem Heroes, cursed be its name, robbed me blind. In my defense, I was maybe the single person most targeted by it, but even though the series I love is what got me through the door, it's impossible to deny that what kept me so addicted was the exploitation of my FOMO. You see, like any other self-respecting Zoomer, my identity is entirely constructed around the media content I enjoy. I've been discussing Fire Emblem in online spaces for like 18 years now, and my collection of merch is frankly quite embarrassing. So of course I wanted to take part in the new Fire Emblem everybody was talking about. The way I see it, there are two components to the FOMO games like these use. The first is online discussion. Every week or so, there was some news about Fire Emblem Heroes. This resulted in a sort of perpetual discourse that, while very toxic, was also enrapturing to engage in. Discussing something you think you're an expert on is probably one of the most fundamental pleasures of modern life, and Fire Emblem had never had such consistent news that was so divisive. While this is definitely an avenue for exploitation, it's the next street over that's really insidious to me. To be able to continue to play the game at a high level, and indeed to express yourself with the stuff you're a fan of, you must partake in the infamous gacha. If you're somehow unaware, gacha or gachapon refers to these machines you've probably seen at some sort of store or something. The games are named after these machines because they have a similar business model. Spend money for a random item within a known set. Funnily enough, this is closer to the Pokemon card game's business model, but even more insidious. Through a variety of factors, value is obfuscated, supplementary purchases are encouraged, and addiction is enforced. It's transparent if you take a step back from these games that they are gambling. Maybe a bit more niche than your typical slots or blackjack, but even more addictive to their audience. This is actually famously how these games make money. Not from a large player base who spends small amounts occasionally trying to get their favorite guy, but instead from a small, dedicated player base, known as whales, dumping life-changing amounts of money into the digital Faustian fun fest. After finally uninstalling Heroes and really thinking about it, I concluded FOMO was inherently evil, and anything making use of it was, at best, negligent. Then, of all things, Hitman found its way into my life. In the modern Hitman trilogy, there's a game mode called Elusive Targets. In Hitman, your missions are generally broken into two parts. The sneaking around and assessment phase of a level where you figure out how you personally want to complete the objectives, and then there's the execution phase, where you kill the guy and try to escape without raising any alarms. Elusive Targets work like this as well, except for two big changes. One, the missions are only available for a limited amount of real-world time. And 2, once you have killed your target, you are locked into the run, meaning you can no longer reset, and if you fail the mission after this point, you can no longer attempt the mission on this copy of the game. I think this is a frankly awesome game mode, and it even offers a few benefits that may not be immediately obvious. The fundamental appeal here is pretty plain to see though. The second you commit to that kill, your heart starts pounding and you're shaking and you start playing worse because of the sheer anxiety of the situation. If we acknowledge that punishment for failure affects the experience of playing a game, then it should be pretty plain to see the profound level of impact something like this could have on the player. On top of that, the Hitman devs occasionally use this for a limited time collaboration with celebrities like Conor McGregor. Including celebrities in your game is a quick way to subject it to license limbo when you've got to re-release it, so making them limited time allowed them to take advantage of the funny, ironic sheen they could bring to the game without having to commit to the idea for eternity. It also allowed the devs to make more low-stakes experiments with the level design. Obviously, this kind of stuff would normally be done within the playtesting phase of development, but that can only ever be so long with productions this big, so it's pretty cool to see an avenue for devs playing around like they did with the elusive targets. It's plain to see that, at least with Hitman, the fear of missing out can lead to profound and compelling experiences within games that can't necessarily be brought about without it. And of course, once I went looking outside of Hitman with that experience in mind, I realized that the quality at the core of FOMO, transience, had always brought compelling ideas to games, just like any other art form. Most prominently with something I like to call a games as events design philosophy. The Satellaview is an obvious, if you're a nerd, example for this. For those unaware, this was an attachment for the Super Famicom that allowed you to download games via a satellite modem. Due to the fact that these were live events, some games like BS Fire Emblem Arcanea Saga were able to feature live voice acting and other things well beyond the scope of the Super Famicom. The weekly serialized nature of these broadcasts could even be said to add something to games with an anime aesthetic like Fire Emblem. For something less esoteric, you can look at modern esports. While I'm not much of a fan myself, it's impossible to deny the way the context informs the experience. Landing a combo on someone in bracket or nailing a buzzer beater in a Rocket League tournament is way more satisfying than doing the same thing online. And that's because the specific performance you offer in the time frame of that tournament is all that matters. The fear of missing out and the inherent transience of a tournament are like 95% of the value of a tournament for the competitors. I could probably ramble about this idea of transience for another hour, change my channel name to the Gaming Buddha, and I definitely will at some point, but we should probably get back on track. So, where does this leave Pokémon? Well, it's easy to see they haven't quite stuck the landing like Hitman did. The scenario design in some of the older Pokémon events can be quite cool, but nowadays you're more likely to just have them spawn in your party than actually have to catch them or anything. On top of that, their attachment to movies and other marketing materials definitely makes me feel a bit cynical about the business engine they're a part of, but the lower stakes also has me not being too upset about their limited nature. Over almost 30 years, Pokémon has varied the little creatures on basically every axis they can. It's only sensible that the way you get them is something that can change too. And it even plays into the idea of legends that's pretty core to the series' identity and history. The way I see it, them being there when they are around is a cool bonus. And when that bonus is no longer around, it doesn't turn into a deficit as long as the main game itself is complete feeling. While developers should of course be cautious not to tap into the exploitable bits of human nature, I don't think there's any piece of design as granular as making something limited time that could be considered bad design on its own. Ultimately, it's all in how you use it, and I think devs should feel open to use anything they can think of to express the broadest swath of the human experience. We're able to feature live voice acting and other things well beyond the scope of the Super Famicom. The weekly serialized nature of these broads... these broads are serialized, Ziad.